everybody, and welcome back to another video. It's officially been 2 months since the Wings of Fire guidebook's release, and I'm so sorry I'm just getting to my review and guidebook related videos now. But I finished reading A Guide to the Dragon World, and man, is it absolutely one of my favorite pieces of WoW content in a while. If you're wondering whether or not to ask for this for Christmas or buy it for a dragon fan you know, I'm here to let you know my thoughts. I'm starting off with a spoiler-free review, and at the end I'll dive into thoughts on more specific details and set up future discussions. I'll make it clear when I get talking about potential spoilers, so don't worry. But before we begin, a huge shout out to my patrons. DougLove95, 3 Moons, Slightest Wild, and Fizz. Thank you all so much for supporting me. Links to the social medias are in the description down below. Anyways, without further ado, let's get into the video. A Guide to the Dragon World is absolutely amazing. I can't even begin to express how enjoyable of a read this was from start to finish. I was so excited for its release, and the book did not disappoint. I think I liked reading it more than I did The Flames of Hope, which is the latest main series book. Is the guidebook perfect? Well, no. It did like a few things I really think should have been touched on, which I'll bring up later, but it was very close to perfection. And is it worth the buy? Absolutely. If you're wondering when to check this out, you at least need the knowledge of all 3 arcs to understand everything and get the best experience. Plus there are some kind of spoilers, I guess, though the guidebook does a really good job of not giving a lot away. Will it ruin anything major for you if you read it before you finish the main series? No. But will it be better if you wait? Definitely. You'll get things and characters more, and honestly I'd really recommend you at least read arcs 1 through 3 before checking it out. Okay, so back to the review. Guide to the Dragon World was created as an actual book in the Wings of Fire universe. Organized by the Dragonets of Destiny, mostly Starflight, it's created and worked on so the dragons of Pyria and Pentala will be able to learn about the other tribes. Because of the War of Sinning Succession, other fights, and the literal discovery of whole other dragon types, it's pretty safe to say that a book written by dragons for dragons to learn is a good start in unification. And so, Starflight sent out requests to the Queens and his friends to have them help out in creating the actual Guide to the Dragon World. It's honestly awesome that we have our hands on what's scrolls in WoF, so the thing we're reading is exactly what they are. Honestly, what makes this book the most spectacular is the amount of new perspectives. Holy cow, do we get a ton of new POVs, characters, and more introduced. It feels like a whole new world, diving into sides of Wings of Fire we've literally never touched. It's been a dream of mine to see what life is like for the civilian Ice Wings in villages, as the only perspective we've gotten of those are in royalty or palace dwellers. But here, we actually get to learn what life is like for them through the eyes of a brand new Ice Wing. So much in this guidebook is brand new content, information, and art. I spent so much time just admiring the colorful and gorgeous joy-ing art on a lot of the pages. We do see a few things reused, poster art and basic tribe information. Tui wasn't afraid to add in a whole lot of new. Absolutely refreshing and done right. Starflight wanted to see the lives of all dragons, that way stories were told from the characters who lived them. It gave us a reason to see these new and old characters, because history from the people, or in this case dragons, is great. Like I said, there's new characters we see speak and write, getting into their heads. It's dragons from all types of positions, from Icewing villagers, to queens in war, to scouting blacksmiths, and so on. There are a lot of down-to-earth stories being told, and it is wonderful. But we get more new content than just the characters mentioned and shown in the lore. We get Wings of Fire history from a lot of points in the timeline. The Scorching, a few thousand years ago, a couple hundred years ago, 50 years ago, to even now. It's fresh and exciting, and every page I was so utterly curious where I'd be going next when I flipped it. Perhaps this time it was ancient letters exchanged between newly introduced queens, and the last one was a fun story from Kinkajou. All kinds of Wings of Fire fans will love this book. There is truly something for everybody. If you're wondering whether or not to get it, I'm telling you right now you're going to have a blast like I did. And if you're a parent, buy this for your child or teen this Christmas. They'll love it, I promise. We also got a ton of brand new and updated maps. There's an exclusive look at the Kingdom of Night from thousands of years ago in all its glory. Pentala is definitely not forgotten, because in the section forward we even see an example map of a hive in detail. It's a much wider, detailed perspective in all the maps, colored nicely as well. I was curious how this would work when A Guide to the Dragon World was announced, but the sections are done through the tribes. Each tribe gets a certain amount of pages dedicated to them. Well, it could have gone the easier route like other boring guidebooks and just had basic information and bullet point facts. The Wings of Fire guidebook is different in such a special way. We get everything told to us through the lenses of dragons from the tribes we're learning about. And that comes in a ton of original ways. Seriously, I don't even think I saw ways of this being totally reused. Wish I could go over everything just to show you guys how much variety there was. We see the history and life through ancient scrolls, letters passed between queens, learning aquatic, conversations and interviews between dragons, original dragon-written tales, traditional customs, more information on events and powers, artifact lists, uses and locations, and so much more. If you ever wanted detailed descriptions in the hives, wanted to see more of Albatross Lagoon, or simply in the mood for seeing returning characters and new ones alike, you're not going to be disappointed. The guidebook also sets up the future of the series, so it's a must-read in my eyes for any fan bouncing up and down with excitement for what's to come. Everything is just so perfectly executed and put there, and I smiled so much while reading. I do have a few very minor complaints, which I'll start getting into. I really wanted folktales and old stories to actually be read, even just small bits of them at the very least. They could have provided information on other things I wanted to see, like the Great Ice Dragon and other dragon religions. I was a little bummed we didn't get to see either of those brought up, but there is room for it in the future to be woven in naturally in Arc 4. Another thing that needed to be featured was an accurate dragon-to-human age chart / conversion. There is a scavenger section, but it's literally only 2 pages, excluding the snippet from Smolder's journal. I think this could have been explained by saying characters like Cricket and Axolotl worked on creating age conversions for dragons and humans. It'd be a good way to help convince dragons to not eat people, because they go through the same stages of life and thoughts. That's really all I can think of, honestly, when it comes to negatives. I'm sure there's more that'll hit me later, but nothing at all that ruins the guidebook in any way. Again, I would completely recommend A Guide to the Dragon World. From the first page to the last, I was very happy. Tui outdid herself with this one. She could have gone that stale, cheap, and easy route of bullet point facts, but instead created dozens of unique tales to show us the real histories of Pyria and Pantala. Alright, so I'm going to be getting into some slight spoilers here. Nothing major, I'll just be going into my favorite parts of each tribe section, which stood out to me the most. But if you want to go in knowing completely nothing about what you'll read on the next page, which is honestly best, click off. Unless you've already gone on this journey and finished the guidebook, then continue watching. Honestly, the Mudwing section started off a little weak, but it redeemed itself with the introduction of the most ancient Mudwing scroll, the Mystery Egg. This was just a short, sweet tale about a group of Mudwing sibs and a mother learning the truth behind blood red eggs. I really love this, and seeing a look at the early tribes is always great. But Who Shall Wear the Crown by Prince Sawgrass was also a really fascinating read. It's from an old journal like the previous one, and gives us insight on the Mudwing secession crisis. Just seeing how the Mudwings worked back then was incredibly cool, and I was really engaged and interested to see where the story and history would go. Definitely the best part of the seeming section, the letters between Albatross Lagoon, and the ones from Turtle and his brother discussing hatching days in the Sea Kingdom. We're all suckers for content relating to Albatross, let's not deny it. These letters were really neat, bringing us back to one of the coolest times in WoF, in my opinion. There's just so many hints of what would come, and it provided a surprising amount of insight on the Royal Seeming Massacre. And then seeing Turtle and his brother talk about the customs of seeming hatching days was absolutely sweet, and I couldn't stop reading. I swear, I love the Seemings more every day. The royal princes deserve time to shine, and I'm glad we got to see their letters. Learning a bit of aquatic was fun too, as well as seeing a description on coral scrolls. Next we have the Rainwing section. I just love all the ancient letters, so the ones between Princess Python to her grandniece, Queen Jacaranda, were such a good read. It gives us some information on why the Rainwings became pacifists, and showed the perspective of one of the aggressive and brutal Rainwing lord too. Man, I just really liked this. It's a nice contrast with varying ideas present, giving us a deeper dive on the evolution of Rainwing culture. Jambu's section with a full explanation on most of the colors was really helpful and interesting as well. The Nightwing chapter was full of exciting content. We got the story of a Nightwing named Comet who had seer abilities despite being born under none of the moons, and learned how he led the tribe to safety. What was incredibly fascinating especially was the recorded interview between Glory and Mastermind, giving us some insight on the time of the volcanic Nightwings and their mindset. I'm glad we could come back to Mastermind because even just this glimpse was enough to satisfy me. We finally got more of Fiercey's perspective in the form of her writing about renewal, the nightwing encampment she and some others are starting on the ruins of the lost city of Night. I really wonder if this will play a role into the future of the series, or setting this up as another living place for the Nightwings that will be important somehow. I can imagine precious and forgotten artifact in the ruins that when found could alter the course of history. It would be awesome if Tui went this kind of route. At the end, after describing how the Nightwings settled in the Lost City and what they've been doing, Fiercey provided an old scroll about Queen Vigilance's glass jubilee. Nightwing culture, tradition, and history is so exciting to learn about, especially when it relates to Darkstalker's time and the little bit before. Moving on to the Sandwing section, there was a lot I really liked here. We got a list of missing Sandwing artifacts and treasure, which I believe just had to be put there for a reason. More on that in a future video. Sunny writing about the items she remembered seeing in Burns' Weirdling Tower was very interesting as well, but what was a really good story I didn't expect was an excerpt from Smolder's diary. Dives into his very early relationship with Rose the Human, and it was just so great reading Smolder's development here. Being honest, Rose is the only human I really like in this series, so seeing her return made me happy. It was a heartwarming tale that I didn't expect to be so down to earth. And learning and seeing more of the three Sandwing sisters and other Sandwing royalty of the time was a huge plus. I think the Icewing section was my favorite part of the guidebook. Ming's application to Jade Mountain Academy was pure adorableness, and seeing an artist's recreation of her ice sculpture was awesome. I was a little disappointed with the Icewing gifts list because literally all of them we had seen before in the series except like one or two, but it still is a guidebook which needs to have a lot of past information. We got more Glacier content in the form of seeing the menu and courses from our coronation feast all those years ago, and it was such a fantastic look into Icewing culture that felt very natural. What I'd consider my favorite part of the entire guidebook was Caribou's scroll talking about life as an Icewing in the outer villages. Oh my goodness, this was everything I needed and more. If you're a big fan of my videos, you might know just how much I've wished to see what life is like for non-rural Icewings. And here we finally saw it firsthand, and it's greater than I ever imagined. It honestly makes me a million times more interested in the tribe, and I love them more because of this chapter in the guidebook. I just learned so much, and I need an entire video to discuss what we could take from this portion alone. Next up was the Skywing chapter, which started off the list of dragons Scarlet wanted dead and why. A bunch of names were crossed out, but others were left untouched who survived. There's an intriguing mystery here I hope gets touched on in the future, of a dragon on the list Vermilion found no records of. So much potential here. The letter from Carmine after the Royal Sting Massacre was awesome, and seeing our first look at an old Skywing competition called Clash of the Claws was super cool. Skywing culture is another favorite of mine, and I cherish any bits of it we get. Cliff's Skywing anthem is super catchy, and you can learn to play it. Then we got something Tui promised to us a very long time ago, and she delivered. The story of Scarlet's husband, why he married her, and what happened to him. Reading about Talon and Canyon had my full attention the entire time, and of course, more Queen Scarlet. We also saw her bloody crowning day as she killed her mom in the middle of her wedding ceremony so she could become queen. I just love this story so much, and I'll never pass up more Skywings. In the Silking section, we learned a lot about life as a Silking under Wasp's reign, later contrasted in the Hivewing one, as well as a scroll written by Queen Monarch after she gave up her tribe. She writes this part of the journal or diary, and half is a prayer or talk to Clearsight. Honestly, the Silking section is at least interesting due to the lack of perspective in stories. It's literally 70% just the rules and jobs they had to follow in the past, but this Monarch portion blew my mind. It's so well thought out and perfectly written. Feels like we're really getting into the mind of this Silken Queen, and we're left only to guess what horrible thing might have happened to her. It's such a sad and emotional story, and I found myself caring a lot more about her and the tribe because of it. We also got some information on the Tree Wars and what led to Wasp and Sequoia hating each other. The dynamic present, even in Monarch's writing alone, makes you want to beg Tui for a Tree Wars Legends book. We could get each queen's POV, seeing more of the disagreements and friendships. Just the way Monarch described thinking of the three of them as the young queens and how they'd meet up all the time is giving me Darkstalker Legends vibes, and I can't explain it. Tui, if you don't create a Tree Wars Legends book, then I'm just going to write it myself. The Hiving section was a million times more interesting and enjoyable than it had to be. A detailed map of the hive, descriptions on each one and how they're different, something we deserve to have shown in the actual arc they are present in, hiving jobs in the academies, etc. This just skyrocketed my interest in the tribe. Seeing a piece from the Book of Clairsight was really intriguing, and it showed off different futures from all throughout the prophecies and eras. The chapter was great for those reasons especially, but it did drag a little with the high-wing abilities because there was literally nothing new shared. Maybe it's just me, but the last dragon section, the one on the leaf wings, felt way shorter? Maybe I'm just tripping, but it was a wonderful read regardless. Seeing the return of the iconic leafwings and a few brief sentences from each of their favorite books was fun, but the highlight of this portion for sure was the letters between Sequoia and Linden and Belladonna. The poison wing sapling dynamic was possibly the coolest thing about the poison jungle, and seeing the advances of both factions as well as their relationships was incredible here. Sequoia got so much time to shine in this entire guidebook, and I loved it. She's starting to become one of my new favorite queens in the series. Linden also has a ton of potential, and if we get a Tree Wars Legends book, I'd love to see her return. And lastly, we got two brief pages on scavengers and how dragons need to stop eating them. This size chart was brought back, even though it's disproven in nearly every other instance. And yeah, that's it for the guidebook. If you made it this far, please let me know in the comments, because that's true dedication. I absolutely adore A Guide to Dragon World. Like I said earlier, Tui could have gone that cheap route of facts and lists, bullet points, and boxes. But instead, she crafted stories, and very few things in here felt like filler. I'd read a version that was 1,000 pages and probably not be disappointed. Sure, it's not a complete comprehensive guide, but it's so helpful, and hints at what Tui might want to cover next. But what do you guys think? Did you enjoy it? And if so, what was your favorite chapter? Your least favorite? Let me know down below. I can't even think of one I thought was really weak, honestly. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!